There you go.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay. How many of you have phones? Okay, see, not even surprised. Raise your hand if you think you use your phone too much sometimes. Okay, you are not alone. We wake up with them next to us, we use them to talk to our friends, and they play a large role in our lives. As almost adults, we hope that we have control over our use of them, but what about kids? So some children are becoming more and more comfortable with cell phones as they grow up. They know how to navigate apps and sometimes can't control their usage. They're figuring out how to hide what they're doing online. They're just as good as us, and we've had them a lot longer than they have. And parents and teachers are, lacking how to control them in the classroom and even control them at home. So it's never been okay to make generalizations, and this is a fun little part. Okay, so it's never been okay to make generalizations. So let me say this: Germans are evil. There we go. I mean, we all know about the Holocaust, but that is not okay to say. The Germans I've met are lovely people, and they've given us Albert Einstein, tulip fields, and pretzels. So just because one or many things have happened, to whatever extent or nature, why should everything that we say is all one thing should be bad? Like, why do people always say that millennials are addicted to their phones? It could be a handful of the majority or a lesser amount, but personally, I do not care. I am myself. I am a proud millennial, but I am not addicted to my phone. As I continue on to college and become a student and even more of my own person, I do not want to be categorized. I intend to avoid being just a number. According to a new survey from Bank of America, 4 in 10 millennials admit to having a closer relationship with their smartphones than with most of the important people in their lives. And I am not, and we will not be that number. I want to spread awareness that healthy cell phone use can start young, and no one should be judged based off of one statement. I wanted to do some research with middle schoolers right in the district in Mr. Smirka's class and the entire grade, and via the web. I turned that data into a helpful infographic, and I want to distribute that to the parents and staff in the district. Whilst this is my goal within a geographical area that I can reach, I hope that children and parents in the world can become more aware of why phones can be good, yet it's crucial to not let them rule their lives. I see younger family members, kids I babysit, and friends that wander aimlessly on their phones. Beautiful weather is outside, or there are people surrounding them that are willing and ready to have a conversation, yet the children's minds are not there. They're blank, like this, filling themselves with insufficient knowledge, like how to better edit a photo or who did what this week. This information will not benefit them in the future. Rather, it will become a part of themselves that one day they cannot change. This is not every child or person, but this is what I have encountered. My goal is to help anyone that is willing to see a better side of using their phone and can imagine what their use looks like from the outside looking in. As I conducted my research, I dealt with kids that didn't care. I dealt with lying, lack of understanding, not taking it seriously, but that happens. They're only in 7th grade. But being able to talk one-on-one to a student that was respectful and understanding surpassed the nature of the problem. It was a real conversation versus me receiving feedback through technology, which was what I was trying to avoid, the overuse of it. Part of me was worried that some of these students, just years younger than me, would have difficulty communicating effectively and with good attention. It may have been exaggerated for me to think that, but phones can change people. It was refreshing to see that some of the kids were still focused on being social without an app and were letting me know what they were thinking. A lot of them actually did not have phones that I personally talked to, but when I did the survey, the majority of them did have their own phones, and they were iPhones. So whilst phones and technology could have been distracting during the process, I also have to stop and think about how much they could have helped. If I sent out mobile surveys that they could have answered at home if they had to leave their laptop at school, they could have answered it there. They could have, if they personally knew me, they could have texted me their response or what they thought. And they could even talk about it with their friends, having feedback between each other, saying, oh, that whole thing was stupid, why'd she ask? Or they could have said, oh, that's kind of cool that she was doing that. Importantly, it's not always the phone that's the problem. It can be the kids too. So with all of my ideas and tips and research, I created an infographic, and that's a little snippet of it, and I did it on, not Canva. Venngage. And this entire journey allowed me to work on my planning, my speaking skills, and my research skills. I also learned about some better ways that I can be using my phone helpfully. I myself use screen settings to avoid overusing my phone, or just using it so I don't have to use it to pass the time, because you always find that instance where it's sitting on your desk or your nightstand at home and you are just watching TV and you're grabbing it and you're grabbing it and you're looking at it, but what are you really looking for? You're not looking for anything. It's not going to give you anything. Maybe you'll see something, but you should use it wisely. And when we do that and we just grab it, it's time wasted. It's time that we could have used elsewhere. I understand that if it brings you joy, but wouldn't we rather that kids in the future, and even maybe our children, find joy outside doing a physical activity or bonding with us? They might watch us overuse a cell phone and think that it's okay, because kids are constantly watching and mimicking. And these tips help avoid such situations. I hope that one day, based off of the information I've acquired, to create the healthiest environment and relationship with my child and their phone. I want to create reasonable boundaries and prove that something like a phone, so minuscule yet important, should not determine any type of person. I also want to use better habits when it comes to technology, as I know myself, I can become entangled in the internet and my phone. I hope that this video will be far from offensive, as part of it is true, but more importantly, we can revert to more meaningful expressions and forms of communication without going straight to our phones.
The other problem, to compound it, is we're growing up in a Facebook, Instagram world. In other words, we're good at putting filters on things. We're good at showing people that life is amazing even though I'm depressed, right? And so everybody sounds tough, and everybody sounds like they got it all figured out. And the reality is there's very little toughness, and most people don't have it figured out. And so when the more senior people say, well, what should we do? They sound like, this is what you gotta do. And they have no clue. Right? So you have an entire generation growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations, right? Through no fault of their own. Through no fault of their own, right? They were dealt a bad hand, right? Now let's add in technology. We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it. We're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely. And so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 hi. Because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is going slower. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get it, you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive, right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones, which is the equivalent of opening up the liquor cabinet and saying to our teenagers, hey, by the way, this adolescence thing, if it gets you down. But that's basically what's happening. That's basically what's happening, right? That's basically what happened. You have an entire generation that has access to an addictive, numbing chemical called dopamine through social media and cell phones as they're going through the high stress of adolescence. Why is this important? Almost every alcoholic discovered alcohol when they were teenagers. When we're very, very young, the only approval we need is the approval of our parents. And as we go through adolescence, we make this transition where we now need the approval of our peers. Very frustrating for our parents, very important for us. It allows us to acculturate outside of our immediate families into the broader tribe, right? It's a highly, highly stressful and anxious period of our lives, and we're supposed to learn to rely on our friends. Some people, quite by accident, discover alcohol and numbing effects of dopamine to help them cope with the stress stresses and anxieties of adolescence. Unfortunately, that becomes hardwired in their brains, and for the rest of their lives, when they suffer significant stress, they will not turn to a person, they will turn to the bottle. Social stress, financial stress, career stress, that's pretty much the primary reasons why an alcoholic drinks, right? What's happening is because we're allowing unfettered access to these dopamine-producing devices and media, basically it's becoming hardwired, and what we're seeing is as they grow older, too many kids don't know how to form deep, meaningful relationships. Their words, not mine. They will admit that many of their friendships are superficial. They will admit that their friends, that they don't count on their friends, they don't rely on their friends, they have fun with their friends, but they also know that their friends will cancel on them if something better comes along. Deep, meaningful relationships are not there because they never practice the skill set, and worse, they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device, they're turning to social media, they're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook, right? These things balanced. Alcohol is not bad, too much alcohol is bad. Gambling is fun, too much gambling is dangerous, right? There's nothing wrong with social media and cell phones. It's the imbalance, right? If you're sitting at dinner with your friends and you're texting somebody who's not there, that's a problem. That's an addiction. If you're sitting in a meeting with people you're supposed to be listening to and speaking, and you put your phone on the table, face up or face down, I don't care, that sends a subconscious message to the room that you're just not that important to me right now, right? That's what happens. And the fact that you cannot put it away is because you are addicted, right? If you wake up and you check your phone before you say good morning to your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, you have an addiction. And like all addiction, in time, it'll destroy relationships, it'll cost time, and it'll cost money, and it'll make your life worse, right? So you have a generation growing up with lower self-esteem that doesn't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress, right? Now you add in the sense of impatience, right? They've grown up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. You want to watch a movie? Log on and watch a movie. You don't check movie times. You want to watch a TV show? Binge. You don't even have to wait week to week to week, right? I know people who skip seasons just so they can binge at the end of the season, right? Instant gratification. You want to go on a date, you don't even have to learn how to be like, hey. You don't even have to learn and practice that skill. You don't have to be the uncomfortable one who says yes when you mean no, and says no when you mean no, and yes when you don't have to swipe right. Bang, I'm a stud. Right? You don't have to learn the social and coping mechanisms, right? Everything you want, you can have instantaneously. Everything you want, instant gratification. Except job satisfaction and strength of relationships, there ain't no app for that. They are slow, meandering, uncomfortable, messy processes. And so I keep meeting these wonderful, fantastic, idealistic, hardworking, smart kids. They just graduated school. They're in their entry-level job. I sit down with them and I go, how's it going? They go, I think I'm going to quit. I'm like, why? They're like, I'm not making an impact. I'm like, you've been here 8 months. You know? It's as if they're standing at the foot of a mountain and they have this abstract concept called impact that they want to have in the world, which is the summit. What they don't see is the mountain. I don't care if you go up the mountain quickly or slowly, but there's still a mountain. And so what this young generation needs to learn is patience. That some things that really, really matter, like love, or job fulfillment, joy, love of life, self-confidence, a skill set, any of these things, all of these things take time. Sometimes you can expedite pieces of it, but the overall journey is arduous and long and difficult. And if you don't ask for help and learn that skill set, you will fall off the mountain, or you will, the worst case scenario, and we're already seeing, the worst case scenario is we're seeing an increase in suicide rates, we're seeing an increase in this generation, we're seeing an increase in accidental deaths due to drug overdoses, we're seeing more and more kids drop out of school or take leaves of absence due to depression. Unheard of. These are all, this is really bad. The best case scenario, those are all bad cases, right? The best case scenario is you'll have an entire population growing up and going through life and just never really finding joy. They'll never really find deep fulfillment in work or in life. They'll just waft through life and it'll do just, it's fine. How's your job? It's fine. Same as yesterday. How's your relationship? It's fine. Like that's the best case scenario.
So he talks about how he compares it to being an alcoholic, and obviously it'd be like me saying everybody here is an alcoholic. We're all addicted to our phones. I know some of you this isn't the case, and some of you it may be the case, but if it's the case for you, prove him wrong. Prove to him that you care about your relationships and you can put your phone away in your pocket and you don't even need it in the room, and if you don't want to, that's fine. That's your thing. But if it really impacted you, do something about it. Try setting screen settings or plug it in downstairs before you go to bed. And best case scenario, do that for yourself and then help the kids, and if you have your kids or the kids in your lives, the younger generations that are supposed to be our future, help them do that. Don't let them be addicted. Don't let them do that kind of stuff with their phones. So I asked some of the kids in the middle school some questions, and some of them were pretty generic. But then the best feedback was when I was like, oh, like, do your parents limit your screen time or like how much you use your phone? Some kids said yes, some kids said no. And then this one girl was like, my parents don't even care what I do on my phone. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I was like, have they ever checked it before? And she's like, yeah, once when I got it, but they don't look anymore. And I was like, okay, good for you. And she's like, yeah, but my parents use theirs all the time. And I said, what do you think about that? And she straight up said that they were hypocrites. So they notice, they do. And so if they notice how, like, their parents saying, get off your phone, and then, like, my mom does it too. And because it's still so new to her, but it's not new to me anymore. And she's like, get off your phone. And then guess who's at dinner texting somebody? My mom, not me. So, did you guys have any questions?
That was excellent.
That's good, yeah.
Man.